The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the polished hardwood court that had been hastily prepared for the most anticipated showdown of the year. Jason Flash Thompson, the millionaire basketball player with a flair for the dramatic, stood on one side, his chiseled features framed by a perfectly styled fade. He wore a custom jersey emblazoned with his name, the fabric glinting under the bright lights as he adjusted his wristbands, a ritual that had become second nature. His followers on social media had ballooned to millions, and he thrived on their adoration, feeding off the likes and retweets that flooded his posts. "Today's the day, baby. Let's show Ian how it's done," he exclaimed, his voice booming as he addressed a small crowd that had gathered, phones in hand, ready to capture every moment of the spectacle. The air buzzed with excitement, a palpable energy that enveloped the court. He had announced the challenge just days before, a one-on-one match against an unknown street player, Marcus the Ghost Johnson. The idea was simple. Jason would humiliate this underdog for views, a move that would undoubtedly go viral. As Jason paced back and forth, he relished the thought of the inevitable triumph that awaited him. "Watch and learn, folks. This kid doesn't stand a chance," he said, smirking at the cameras. His confidence was contagious, and the spectators cheered, feeding his ego. "I'm about to make this kid famous, just not for the reasons he thinks." Meanwhile, across town in a neighborhood where dreams often felt just out of reach, Marcus Johnson prepared for the challenge that would alter the course of his life. The walls of his cramped apartment echoed with the sounds of his family's struggles, the hum of a broken heater, and the distant shouts from children playing outside. Marcus had spent his entire life navigating these streets, honing his skills on cracked pavement and makeshift hoops. He was known among his friends for his agility and uncanny ability to read the game, but to the world beyond his neighborhood, he was just another face in the crowd. "Did you hear about the match?" his best friend Darnell asked, his eyes wide with excitement. "You gotta do it, man. This is your shot." Marcus shrugged, the weight of uncertainty heavy on his shoulders. "What if I fail? What if he just wipes the floor with me?" Darnell punched him playfully in the arm. "You won't. You're the ghost for a reason. You're fast, you're smart, and you've got heart. Just show the world what you can do." With Darnell's encouragement echoing in his mind, Marcus decided to take the plunge. He practiced relentlessly, visualizing the match, feeling the ball in his hands as he shot hoops in the dim evening light. As the day of the challenge approached, he felt a mix of excitement and anxiety churning within him. This was more than just a game. It was a chance to escape the constraints of his life. The day had arrived and the atmosphere at the court was electric. A crowd had gathered, buzzing with anticipation, their voices rising in a cacophony of cheers and chatter. Jason basked in the glow of attention, flexing his muscles and flashing his trademark smile, while Marcus stood on the opposite end, heart pounding in his chest. He felt small, dwarfed by the millionaire's presence, yet he was determined to prove himself. "Hey, Ghost, you ready to get embarrassed?" Jason taunted, his bravado filling the air like a thick fog. Marcus met his gaze, steeling himself. "I'm ready to play, Flash. Let's see what you've got." The whistle blew, and the game commenced. Jason took the initiative, dribbling the ball with a flair that showcased his immense talent. He maneuvered with grace, performing flashy crossovers and behind-the-back dribbles that drew gasps from the crowd. Every move was calculated, designed to intimidate, but as he looked across the court, he noticed Marcus was watching intently, a flicker of determination in his eyes. With a sudden burst of speed, Jason lunged toward the basket, launching himself for a dunk that sent the crowd into a frenzy. "This is how it's done," he shouted, basking in the cheers that followed. But Marcus wasn't deterred. He gathered himself, his mind sharp and focused, analyzing Jason's every move. As the game progressed, he began to find his rhythm. With each possession, he showcased his agility, slipping past Jason's defenses with unexpected finesse. The crowd began to murmur, intrigued by the tenacity of the underdog. "Come on, Flash! Show him who's boss!" someone shouted. But the cheers for Marcus started to swell, a testament to the growing appreciation for his raw talent. As they exchanged points, Jason's confidence began to waver. "You're lucky, kid," he grumbled, frustration creeping into his voice. "You won't keep this up forever." But Marcus merely smiled, his focus unwavering. "You'd be surprised at what I can do," he replied, his breath steady as he drained a mid-range jumper, the ball swishing through the net. The game was turning into a spectacle that no one had anticipated. The crowd erupted in cheers for Marcus, and with each point he scored, Jason felt the pressure mounting. This wasn't just a game anymore. It was a battle for pride, for reputation, and for the dreams they both held close. "Let's see if you can keep up." Jason shot back, determination fueling his competitive spirit. The atmosphere crackled with energy as spectators leaned forward, captivated by the unfolding drama. Marcus, with his street-smart moves and relentless spirit, was proving to be a formidable opponent. Jason's flashy style began to feel inadequate against the raw, unpolished talent of the boy who had been underestimated. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the court, both players were locked in a fierce contest of wills. The stakes were rising, and the outcome remained uncertain, leaving the crowd on the edge of their seats. In that moment, as sweat dripped down their brows and the echo of the bouncing ball filled the air, it became clear that this game was about more than just basketball. It was a collision of two worlds, a testament to ambition, skill, and the unyielding desire to rise above one's circumstances. And as the match unfolded, both Jason and Marcus were about to discover just how life-changing this day would be. The sun blazed down on the asphalt court, casting long shadows as the crowd gathered in anticipation. The air was thick with excitement and tension, a potent mix that coursed through the veins of every spectator. Jason Flash Thompson stood at one end, his designer sneakers glinting in the sunlight, a confident grin plastered across his face. He flexed his muscles, showcasing his athletic build, his presence radiating an aura of superiority. With a few quick dribbles, he displayed his signature moves, effortlessly spinning the ball on his fingertips, eliciting cheers and gasps from the crowd. At the opposite end, Marcus the Ghost Johnson took a deep breath, absorbing the atmosphere. He was just a street kid, but today he felt like he was on the brink of something monumental. His worn-out sneakers were far from flashy, but they had carried him through countless games on the cracked concrete of his neighborhood. He scanned the crowd, noticing familiar faces from his old block mixed in with affluent spectators, all eager to witness this clash of worlds. His heart raced, but he steadied himself, focusing on the game ahead rather than the weight of expectations. "Yo, Ghost," Jason called out, his voice booming over the noise. "You ready to get schooled today?" The crowd erupted in laughter, some already filming the moment on their phones. Marcus felt his cheeks flush, but he refused to let Jason's taunts rattle him. Instead, he locked eyes with his opponent, his resolve hardening. "Just remember, Flash," Marcus replied, his voice steady. "It's not always about the flash. Sometimes it's about the heart." A few spectators murmured in approval, and for a brief moment, Jason's confident facade faltered. "Heart only gets you so far," Jason shot back, rolling his shoulders with a dismissive laugh. "You'll need more than that to keep up with me." The referee blew the whistle, signaling the start of the match. The ball was tossed into the air, and Jason lunged forward, snatching it out of the air with ease. He dribbled down the court, weaving through imaginary defenders, his movements smooth and practiced. The crowd cheered as he performed a dazzling spin move, launching a three-pointer that swished through the net. "Just like I thought," he shouted, grinning ear to ear. "This is going to be too easy." But Marcus wasn't deterred. He moved quickly, positioning himself to receive the ball after Jason's initial shot. He had spent countless hours honing his skills, practicing until the sun went down. He took a deep breath and raced towards the basket, his feet barely making a sound on the asphalt. As Jason turned to face him, Marcus executed a fierce drive, leaving his opponent momentarily stunned. With a swift, fluid motion, he soared into the air, releasing the ball just before his feet touched the ground. The crowd gasped collectively as the ball arched beautifully and dropped through the net. "Nice one, Ghost!" someone shouted from the crowd, and the cheers grew louder, resonating with Marcus's determination. Jason's expression shifted from amusement to irritation. He had expected an easy victory, not this unexpected display of talent. Marcus was not just a street boy, he was a serious contender. Jason quickly regained his composure, shaking off the frustration as he took possession of the ball once more. He dribbled furiously, his mind racing to devise a strategy that would put him back in control. As the game progressed, it became evident that Marcus was not merely playing for fun. He was playing to win. With each point he scored, the crowd's energy surged, rallying behind the underdog. He maneuvered around Jason with an agility that left the millionaire star struggling to keep up. The crowd chanted Marcus' name, their voices blending into a single roar of support. "Come on, Flash, you gotta do better than that," one fan taunted, and Jason's frustration boiled beneath his polished exterior. He swiped at the ball, trying to regain possession. But Marcus danced around him, his confidence soaring with every successful move. "Is that all you've got?" Marcus taunted back, a playful grin spreading across his face as he scored yet another point. "I thought you were supposed to be the best." With each passing moment, Jason felt the pressure mounting. He had built a brand around his persona, and the thought of losing to a street kid threatened to shatter his carefully crafted image. He could feel the eyes of the spectators boring into him, their expectations hanging heavy in the air. Anger bubbled within him, and he decided to take matters into his own hands. "All right, Ghost," he growled, his voice low and intense. "Let's see how you handle a little pressure." He charged at Marcus, his shoulder colliding with the boy's, sending him stumbling. The crowd gasped, shocked at the sudden display of aggression. "Play fair, Flash," someone shouted, and murmurs of disapproval rippled through the audience. But Jason shrugged off the criticism, determined to regain the upper hand. He was not about to let this kid embarrass him on his own turf. "Fair? This is a street game, remember?" Jason retorted, a smirk playing on his lips. "You think it's all smiles and popcorn?" Marcus steadied himself, shaking off the impact. He could feel the adrenaline coursing through his veins, fueling his determination. "I'm not here to play dirty, Flash," he replied, his voice firm. "I'm here to show you what real skill looks like." The game continued, but Jason's tactics grew increasingly aggressive. He pushed Marcus, shoving him away when he tried to get close to the basket. The crowd's initial excitement began to wane, replaced by a sense of disbelief at Jason's behavior. They had come to see a match, not a display of poor sportsmanship. As the score climbed higher in Marcus's favor, Jason's frustration boiled over. He dribbled furiously, his movements becoming erratic as he desperately tried to score. "You're just lucky, Ghost," he spat, his voice harsh. "You think you can take me down?" "Luck has nothing to do with it," Marcus replied calmly, wiping sweat from his brow as he prepared for the next play. "This is all hard work and dedication." The game moved into its final minutes, and the crowd was on the edge of their seats, captivated by the fierce competition. Marcus executed a series of impressive moves that left Jason scrambling. The street boy was now in his element, showcasing a blend of skill and tenacity that was hard to ignore. With the score tied and time dwindling, Jason realized he might truly be in over his head. The cheers for Marcus rang louder, and the millionaire felt the walls closing in around him. Desperation clawed at his insides, and he knew he had to do something drastic to salvage his reputation. "Watch this," he muttered under his breath, a dark glint in his eyes as he plotted his next move. The crowd was unaware of the brewing storm, focused instead on the electrifying game that was unfolding before them. As the tension escalated, one thing became clear. This was no longer just a game. It was a battle for pride, integrity, and the very essence of what it meant to be a champion. As the sun hung high in the sky, casting a golden glow over the makeshift basketball court, the atmosphere crackled with anticipation. The crowd, a mix of fans, skeptics, and curious onlookers, buzzed with excitement. They had come to witness the clash of titans, the millionaire basketball star, Jason "Flash" Thompson, against the street-savvy Marcus, the Ghost Johnson. The stakes were high. The air was thick with tension. Jason stood at one end of the court, his designer jersey clinging perfectly to his sculpted physique. He flashed a confident smile, his trademark charisma on full display. "You all ready to see me put this kid in his place?" he boomed, throwing a wink at the cameras that lined the sidelines. The crowd erupted in cheers, but there were murmurs of doubt amidst the excitement, whispers questioning whether Marcus could truly hold his own against such a seasoned player. Marcus, on the other hand, stood at the opposite end, his uniform a stark contrast to Jason's, faded and worn, a testament to his humble beginnings. He cracked his knuckles, focusing his thoughts, blocking out the noise around him. This was his moment, a chance to prove that talent could rise from the streets and shine in the glaring spotlight of fame. He glanced at the crowd, his heart racing. A small part of him felt overwhelmed, but he buried it deep down, reminding himself of his dreams. As the referee blew the whistle, the game began. Jason quickly dribbled the ball, showcasing his flashy moves, confident that he would dominate. With every step he took, he felt the eyes of the crowd glued to him, eager for a show. "You ready for this, Ghost?" he taunted, his tone dripping with derision. "You're about to learn why they call me Flash." But Marcus wasn't fazed. He had heard it all before. With a swift flick of his wrist, he intercepted Jason's dribble, snatching the ball away. The crowd gasped, an electric surge of surprise rippling through them. "You talk too much," Marcus replied coolly, his eyes locked onto Jason's, a smirk playing at the corners of his lips. In an instant, Marcus drove towards the hoop, his feet dancing on the asphalt, as if he were gliding. He launched himself, soaring high above Jason, and scored with a smooth layup. Cheers erupted around the court, a chorus of disbelief and admiration. Jason stumbled backward, momentarily stunned, the realization that he was in for a fight hitting him like a slap in the face. "1 point for the Ghost!" someone shouted from the crowd, and Marcus soaked in the encouragement. He could feel the energy fueling him, igniting a fire within. He was no longer just a street kid, he was a player, a competitor. Jason shook off the embarrassment, his competitive spirit ignited. He needed to regain control. "Nice shot, but it was a fluke," he scoffed, his voice laced with bravado. He dribbled the ball again, his confidence renewed. He made a feint to the left, then quickly spun right, slipping past Marcus. With a swift jump, he scored, the ball swishing through the net. "See? I'm just warming up," he boasted, puffing out his chest. But Marcus wasn't intimidated. He had come too far to back down now. He responded with swift determination, dribbling the ball with a rhythm that seemed almost hypnotic. The crowd roared as he executed a dazzling crossover, leaving Jason momentarily off balance. With a quick step, he darted past him, sinking another shot. The scoreboard blinked. 3-1, Marcus in the lead. Frustration bubbled beneath Jason's cool facade. He was used to being the center of attention, the undisputed champion of the court. "You think you can keep this up?" he shouted, trying to mask his growing concern with bravado. "You're just a kid playing against a pro." "You're right," Marcus shot back, his voice steady. "But I'm the one winning." As the game progressed, Jason's frustration mounted. He attempted to employ more aggressive tactics, pushing Marcus during plays, using his size to intimidate. But Marcus, agile and quick, danced around Jason's attempts to disrupt his flow. The crowd was now fully behind Marcus, their cheers growing louder with every point he scored. "Come on, Flash. Is that all you've got?" a voice from the crowd taunted, and the laughter that followed only fueled Jason's ire. He could feel the pressure closing in on him. He had built his reputation on victories, on being untouchable, and here he was, struggling against a kid from the streets. "You think you can just showboat and win?" Jason barked, desperation creeping into his voice. "This isn't a circus, Ghost." Marcus paused for a moment, looking Jason straight in the eye. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you challenged me," he replied calmly. The words hung in the air, a stark reminder of the stakes at play. With the game winding down, the scoreboard reflected an unsettling reality for Jason. He had underestimated his opponent, and the realization gnawed at him. As the final minutes ticked away, Marcus executed a breathtaking move. A behind-the-back dribble followed by a swift spin that left Jason momentarily bewildered. With a flick of his wrist, he launched the ball towards the hoop, and it swished through the net with a satisfying sound. The crowd erupted, chants of "Ghost! Ghost!" filling the air, drowning out the noise of Jason's rising panic. The score now stood at 5-1, and Marcus was surging with confidence. He was no longer just a street kid. He was a force to be reckoned with, and the crowd could sense it. "You're done, Flash," Marcus said, a hint of a smile breaking through his focused demeanor. "This is my moment." Jason, desperate to regain the upper hand, resorted to trash-talking, hoping that the words would pierce Marcus's concentration. "You'll never make it in the big leagues, kid. This is just a fluke, and you're about to learn your place." But Marcus remained unshaken, using Jason's negativity as fuel to elevate his game even further. Each insult seemed to strengthen his resolve, pushing him to play harder, faster, and smarter. As the clock wound down, it became increasingly clear that Marcus was not just a street boy. He was a formidable opponent. The crowd's energy pulsed with excitement, and Jason's bravado began to crumble under the weight of reality. He had underestimated his opponent, and now it felt like the ground was slipping from beneath him. With the final seconds ticking away, Marcus took a deep breath, focused on the hoop, and prepared for one last shot. The world around him faded. All that existed was him, the ball, and the net. He took a step back, launched himself into the air, and released the ball just as the buzzer sounded. Time seemed to stretch as the ball sailed through the air. The crowd held its breath, and for a heartbeat, everything felt suspended in time. The ball swished cleanly through the net, sealing his victory. The crowd erupted into cheers, a wave of jubilation that washed over Marcus like a warm embrace. He had done it. He had beaten Flash. Jason stood frozen, disbelief etched across his face. The cheers of the crowd felt distant, muffled by the pounding of his heart. He had lost not just a game, but a piece of his identity as a star athlete. The realization hit him like a freight train, and the weight of his defeat settled heavily on his shoulders. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden hue across the basketball court, Jason Flash Thompson's pulse raced in sync with the adrenaline coursing through his veins. The game had not gone as he had planned. Despite his fame and talent, he found himself on the defensive against Marcus, the Ghost Johnson. The crowd had erupted in cheers for Marcus, their roars drowning out Jason's mounting frustration. He couldn't shake the feeling that everything he had worked for was teetering on the edge of collapse. Jason wiped the sweat from his brow, his mind racing with thoughts of how to maintain his image. He had always been the superstar, the one who dazzled crowds with flashy moves and effortless victories. But today, facing Marcus had been a humbling experience. The way Marcus had danced around him, his quick footwork and uncanny precision, had turned the match into a battle of wills. The underdog had risen, and Jason could feel the ground shift beneath his feet. As the final buzzer sounded, signaling the end of the match, Jason's heart sank. He had lost not just the game, but potentially his reputation. He glanced over at Marcus, who was surrounded by adoring fans, their eyes alight with admiration. It was a sight that twisted Jason's gut. He had never imagined losing to a street player, and the thought of being overshadowed was unbearable. "Flash, you okay?" His friend and manager, Tyler, approached him with a concerned expression. Tyler had been with Jason through thick and thin, always trying to steer him clear of trouble. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I need to think," Jason muttered, his gaze fixed on the jubilant crowd. "This isn't how it was supposed to go. I can't let this kid take my spotlight." Tyler frowned, sensing the danger in his friend's tone. "What are you talking about? You can't just—" "I can't just what?" Stand by and watch my career go down the drain." Jason snapped, his voice low but laced with urgency. "I'll fix this." "What do you mean, fix this?" Tyler pressed, his brow furrowing. "You can't change what happened out there. It was a fair game." "Fair?" Jason scoffed, shaking his head. "You think the world cares about fair? They want a show, and I'm going to give it to them." With that, Jason pushed past his friend, his mind racing with ideas. He needed a plan, and fast. He hurried home, his heart pounding as he envisioned the post that could turn the tide. Inside his lavish penthouse, he sat down at his computer, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The room was dimly lit, the glow of the screen illuminating his determined expression. He clicked through the footage from the match, focusing intently on the moments that made him look good. There it was, a single clip of him driving to the basket, scoring with a flourish. In that moment, he decided it would be the centerpiece of his narrative. He could manipulate the footage, edit it to tell a completely different story. "Just a little twist here, a cut there," he murmured to himself as he began splicing and trimming the video. "I'll make it seem like I dominated the game." As the hours passed, he transformed the raw footage into a polished highlight reel. He added dramatic music, voiceovers that praised his skills, and even filtered in slow-motion shots of him making baskets. The final product was a dazzling showcase of his supposed prowess, a stark contrast to the reality of the match. Satisfied, Jason uploaded the video to his social media accounts, his heart racing with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. "This will go viral," he said aloud, as he added a caption that boasted of his triumph. Within minutes, notifications began pouring in, likes, shares, comments, each one fueling his ego. Meanwhile, Marcus was oblivious to the storm brewing online. He had returned to his neighborhood, his heart still racing from the exhilarating experience of the game. It had been a dream come true to showcase his talent in front of a crowd, to feel the energy of the spectators. He had always played on the streets, but this was different. He had felt alive, powerful, and he was determined to share his story with those around him. "Did you see that?" Marcus exclaimed to his friend, Jamal, as they strolled through the park. "I can't believe how many people came out to watch us." Jamal grinned, bumping shoulders with him. "You were incredible, Marcus. Everyone was talking about you. I think you really showed them what you're made of." "I just played my game, you know." Marcus shrugged, a humble smile spreading across his face. "But it feels good to be recognized." As they spoke, Marcus's phone buzzed with notifications. He pulled it out, his brow furrowing as he noticed the influx of messages. Curiosity piqued. He opened his social media app and was greeted by a flood of comments and shares. "Yo, check this out," Jamal said, peering over his shoulder. "Is that the video of you and Flash?" Marcus clicked on the link, and as the video began to play, his heart raced. He saw Jason's edited highlights, the way they made him look like an unstoppable force. "What the hell?" he muttered, disbelief washing over him. "This isn't how it went down." Jamal shook his head, frustration creeping into his voice. "He's trying to spin the narrative. That's messed up, man. You showed everyone what real talent is." Marcus felt a mix of emotions, anger, confusion, and a sense of betrayal. But beneath it all, he sensed an opportunity. "I can't let him take this away from me," he said, his voice steadying. "I have to share my story too. People need to know the truth about what happened." With newfound determination, Marcus decided to film a response. He gathered his friends and they set up a makeshift video shoot in the park, capturing the essence of his journey. He spoke passionately about his background, his struggles, and how basketball had been his escape. "I'm not just a street kid, I'm a player with dreams," he declared, his voice strong and clear. As he shared his truth, he felt a shift within himself. He was no longer just an underdog. He was a symbol of hope for many in his community. "Let's post this everywhere," Marcus said, handing his phone to Jamal. "I want everyone to see who I really am." As the sun set, painting the sky in vibrant hues of orange and pink, Both Jason and Marcus were on the precipice of something monumental. Jason, driven by desperation and ego, had manipulated the narrative to protect his brand, while Marcus, fueled by integrity and authenticity, was ready to claim his own story. The stage was set for a showdown of truth versus deception, with the world watching closely as the two young men navigated the treacherous waters of fame and integrity. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the city, the fallout from Jason Thompson's deceit began to unfold. The once glamorous life of the basketball superstar was now a tapestry of betrayal and public scorn, unraveling stitch by stitch. The edited video, which had initially catapulted him into the limelight, became a noose tightening around his neck as the unedited footage leaked across social media platforms. In a dimly lit room filled with the remnants of his lavish lifestyle, trophies that now felt like mocking reminders and designer shoes that seemed out of place, Jason sat hunched over his phone, scrolling through the barrage of comments. Each notification felt like a dagger to his pride. "Flash is a fraud," one comment read. "Marcus showed him up. How could he stoop so low?" another added. His phone buzzed again, this time with a message from his manager, Derek. "We need to talk. It's bad, Jason." With a weary sigh, Jason shot back a reply. "What's bad? The whole world knows I'm not the winner." He tossed the phone onto the plush leather couch, feeling the weight of despair settle in his chest. It wasn't just about the game or the betrayal of his fans. It was about his career, his identity. Meanwhile, Marcus Johnson was experiencing the exact opposite. With each passing hour, his fame grew. The same platforms that had once ignored him now buzzed with his name. He was no longer just the ghost. He was the underdog hero. In his small apartment filled with the scent of instant ram and old basketball shoes, Marcus sat wide-eyed as offers rolled in. "Dude, you won't believe this," his best friend, Amir, exclaimed over a video call, his face lit up with excitement. "You've got teams reaching out, even some endorsement." "Really?" Marcus replied, unable to mask the disbelief in his voice. "Like NBA teams?" "Yeah. They want to meet with you. This is huge." Amir's enthusiasm was infectious, and for the first time in a long while, Marcus felt a glimmer of hope. "Amir, this could change everything for me and my family," Marcus said, his voice filled with emotion. "Of course. You deserve this, bro. Just remember where you came from," Amir reminded him, grinning widely. As the call ended, Marcus leaned back in his chair, eyes closing momentarily as he took a deep breath. The weight of his circumstances had shifted dramatically. He was no longer the street boy struggling to make ends meet. He was on the brink of a new life. But even as he reveled in his newfound attention, the shadows of Jason's past actions loomed large. News outlets began to dissect the controversy, inviting analysts and former players to weigh in on the integrity of the sport. "Jason Thompson's actions are a disgrace to the game," remarked a former player on a popular sports talk show. "What he did not only tarnishes his reputation but also undermines the efforts of those who play with heart and honesty." Marcus, watching the broadcast from his modest living room, felt a mix of emotions. While he reveled in his own success, he couldn't help but feel a tinge of pity for Jason. The man had been a household name, idolized by millions, and now he was facing public ridicule. "Do you think he'll come back from this?" Amir asked, joining Marcus on the couch, his eyes fixed on the television. "Honestly, I don't know," Marcus replied, shaking his head. "But he had his chance, and he blew it. I just hope he learns something from all of this." The following days saw Jason's attempts to salvage his image met with resistance. Brand deals began to dissolve, and his presence on social media dwindled. He tried to maintain a facade of indifference, posting curated images of himself working out. But the comments told a different story. "Can't believe you're still trying, Flash," one follower wrote. "Go home, loser," another chimed in. In a moment of desperation, Jason called a meeting with his team. "We need a strategy to regain my image," he insisted, running a hand through his hair, which had started to show the stress of recent events. Derek leaned forward, concern etched on his face. "Jason, the truth is out there. People aren't just going to forget what you did. You need to be honest." "Honest? You think I can just go out and admit I cheated? That's career suicide." Jason shot back, irritation bubbling to the surface. "What you did was already suicide for your career. At least try to salvage some respect," Derek urged, his voice steady. Jason fell silent, the weight of his choices pressing down on him. He had built his entire life on the foundation of being the best, and now that foundation was crumbling. Meanwhile, the basketball community rallied around Marcus. He was invited to showcase his skills at an upcoming charity event, an opportunity to not only demonstrate his talent, but also to engage with the very fans and players who had once overlooked him. As he practiced in a local gym, the rhythmic sound of the basketball bouncing echoed around him. Sweat dripped down his brow as he focused on perfecting his shots. A few kids from the neighborhood watched in awe, their eyes wide with admiration. "Yo, Marcus, you're gonna be a superstar," one of them shouted, pumping his fist in encouragement. "Thanks, man. Just trying to stay focused," Marcus replied, smiling. With every shot he made, the weight of his past began to lift. He wasn't just playing for himself anymore. He was playing for every kid who ever dreamed of breaking free from the chains of their circumstances. The day of the charity event arrived, and the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. As Marcus walked onto the court, the cheers of the crowd echoed in his ears, a stark contrast to the silence he'd often felt in his old neighborhood. "Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Marcus the Ghost Johnson," the announcer shouted, and the crowd erupted. The energy was electric as Marcus faced off against seasoned players, showcasing his raw talent and tenacity. Each dunk and three-pointer he made was met with thunderous applause, solidifying his place in the hearts of the fans. Backstage, Jason watched the event unfold on a monitor. A mix of envy and admiration coursed through him as he saw Marcus thrive. He couldn't deny the boy's talent and the authenticity that radiated from him. Suddenly, he felt a hand on his shoulder. Turning around, he found Derek standing there, eyes narrowed in concern. "You need to make a decision, Jason. Either you own up to what you did, or you'll fade into oblivion." Jason's heart raced. He could either continue to fight against the tide, or confront the truth. As he watched Marcus shine, he felt a flicker of realization. Perhaps there was a way to reclaim his integrity, but it would require him to face the consequences of his actions head-on. With a deep breath, Jason turned away from the monitor, a resolve building within him. It was time to stop running and start confronting the reality he had created. Whether it was too late to salvage his career or not, one thing was clear. The boy he had underestimated was now a beacon of hope for many, and it was time for him to step into the light as well. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow over the city, Marcus the Ghost Johnson stood on the rooftop of an old warehouse, the echoes of the basketball match still fresh in his mind. His phone buzzed incessantly in his pocket, notifications lighting up the screen. Just as he was about to silence it, a message caught his eye. It was from Jason "Flash" Thompson. "Hey, Marcus. I know things have been crazy lately. I want a rematch. I have a new strategy. Let's make it happen." Marcus stared at the message, his heart racing. A rematch? After everything that had happened, Jason wanted to step back onto the court with him. The thought stirred a mixture of emotions in his chest. He had worked so hard to prove himself, to show the world that he was more than just a kid from the streets. And now, here was the very man who had tried to humiliate him, asking for another chance. "Why would he want to play me again?" Marcus muttered under his breath. He turned away from the sunset, the vibrant colors dulling against the growing storm inside him. He knew Jason's reputation. He was a fierce competitor, but also someone who thrived on manipulation and the spotlight. The thought of being used again churned his stomach. As night fell, Marcus sat on the edge of the rooftop, contemplating the offer. His phone buzzed again, this time with a message from his best friend, Malik. "Dude, you won't believe the news. Jason's been training with Coach Grayson. They're saying he's coming back strong." Marcus's eyes widened. Coach Grayson was notorious in the basketball community. The kind of coach who would do anything to win. Someone who had no qualms about bending the rules. The image of Jason, already a master of theatrics, teaming up with someone like Grayson sent a chill down Marcus' spine. "Malik, I just got a message from Jason. He wants a rematch," Marcus replied, his fingers shaking slightly as he typed. "But now I know he's training with Grayson. This can't be good. What are you gonna do?" Malik responded almost immediately. "You can't let him play you again, man. You've worked too hard to get where you are now." Marcus sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know, but part of me wants to give him a chance. He's always been a competitor. Maybe he's changed." "Changed? Seriously? You think he's gonna play fair this time? Look, you've got the spotlight now. Don't let him drag you back into his games. You're better than that." The weight of Malik's words pressed down on Marcus, but there was still that flicker of empathy. Deep down he understood the pressure Jason was under, the fear of losing everything he had worked for. As he stared out at the twinkling lights of the city, Marcus felt the familiar pang of hope battling against a rising tide of caution. The next day, Marcus found himself in the gym, the scent of sweat and polished wood filling the air. He shot hoops, each swish of the net a reminder of his newfound identity. He was no longer just a kid from the streets. He was a rising star in the basketball world, a symbol of hard work and integrity. Yet, as he practiced, the thought of Jason lingered, gnawing at him. Suddenly his phone buzzed again. This time it was a video link. Curiosity piqued. Marcus clicked on it, and his heart sank. It was a promotional video featuring Jason, hyping up the rematch. "I'm coming back stronger than ever," Jason boasted, flashing his trademark smile. "I've been training hard, and I'm ready to reclaim my throne. Marcus, you better be ready because I'm not holding back." Marcus threw his phone onto the bench in frustration. "He's just trying to manipulate the narrative again," he breathed, pacing back and forth. "He thinks he can play me like a puppet." The anger bubbled inside him, a fierce determination igniting. This was not just about basketball. It was about integrity, about standing up for what he believed in. Later that day, Marcus was approached by a couple of reporters. "Marcus, can we get your thoughts on Jason's rematch challenge?" one of them asked, cameras flashing. He took a deep breath, the weight of the moment settling on his shoulders. "Look, I respect Jason as a player, but I'm not interested in being a pawn in his game," he said, his voice steady. "What happened in our last match was real. I earned that victory through hard work and dedication. If he wants a rematch, he needs to come correct." The reporters nodded, scribbling down his words. Marcus felt a wave of relief wash over him. He was ready to stand firm, to protect what he had built. As he left the gym, his phone buzzed again, this time from Jason. "You think you can just talk me down? You don't know what I've been through. I'm not the same guy anymore. Give me a chance to prove it." Marcus paused, contemplating the message. There was a part of him that wanted to believe in the possibility of redemption, but another part that screamed to protect himself from the inevitable disappointment. Days turned into weeks as the buzz around the rematch grew. Jason's promotional videos dominated social media, drawing in viewers with flashy edits and dramatic soundtracks. The anticipation was palpable, and it seemed the world was holding its breath for the showdown between the millionaire and the street boy. Finally, the day of the rematch arrived. Crowds flooded the court, the energy electric, as fans held up signs and chanted both players' names. Marcus stood at the edge, his heart pounding, feeling the weight of expectations settle on his shoulders. He spotted Jason warming up on the other side, his movements sharp and purposeful, but there was something in his eyes, an edge of desperation. Yo, Marcus, Jason called out, catching his eye. You ready for this? Let's give them a show. Yeah, let's give them a show, Marcus replied, his voice steady but firm. There was no room for games this time. As the game began, the intensity was palpable. Marcus felt the adrenaline rush through his veins, his mind focused and sharp. He was ready to prove himself once again, but as the game unfolded, he couldn't shake the feeling that Jason was still playing a different game, one that involved more than just basketball. With every dribble and shot, Marcus found himself not just fighting against Jason, but against the shadows of doubt that loomed over him. Would he be able to hold on to his integrity, or would he be drawn into the chaos that surrounded Jason? The crowd roared, the ball bounced, and the stakes had never been higher. The future of both players hung in the balance, and only time would tell which path they would ultimately choose.